Hey everybody, what is up? It's Dr. Vibe here saying you are blessed and highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. And I am the host and producer of the Dr. Vibe Show. You can also catch me once a month at the monthly Google Hangouts for premium members at the Good Men Project, one of the most viewed men's websites in the world, averaging about 3 million page views a week. And we are jacked. Blessed, highly favored, mag for miracles and a solution for someone's problem, having another special guest with us tonight. Before we get there, if you want to communicate with me tonight on the show, it's at DRVIBESHOW. And if you know anything about this show, I will be tweeting throughout, so look forward to your responses. We do have a unique friend of the show tonight on the line from, I believe, Atlanta, Georgia. His name is Rodney Kellum. He describes himself as a recovering workaholic. Man, there are many of us workaholics, and we need to recover from that illness or ilk. He's been working smart instead of working hard for the last 2 years, and it feels great. He's a follower of Jesus Christ. He's a husband of about to be 2 children, one that is already here on this earth, 5-year-old Randall, and a daughter that's on the way. He is married to a beautiful lady named Crystal, and we're going to find out about his journey and something called fatherpreneurship. But before we go any further, Rodney, welcome to the Dr. Vibe Show. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Dr. Vibe. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it is our pleasure in regards to having you on the show, and thanks for reaching out with us and connecting. And over the last few days, we've had great conversation. I know it's going to be taken to a higher positive level tonight. And actually, last week you were on the Do You Know What Time It Is show, so we appreciate that too.
That was a lot of fun. That was a whole lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, as we like to do customarily on the Dr. Vibe Show, can you share a little bit about your background, a little bit of, especially the early days, because I don't see anything about the before college days in this bio.
Well, excuse me. Well, my early days, I'm a native Californian. I grew up between 2 cities. I call it Sacradina. That's Sacramento by way of Pasadena, California. You know, I grew up mainly raised by my mother, but I did have a wonderful dad in my life. I have what you call a blended family, like most people would understand. And I grew up with a lot of male figures that showed me how to work hard, including my mother, on how to work hard. If something needs to get done, you work hard for it. And I took that thought process all the way from elementary, junior high, high school, college, and into the workforce once I joined it. I came to find out that it really didn't get me where I wanted to go. And in the short version of the story, that would lead me to fatherpreneurship. So there's many more little pieces in between.
What was growing up on the, as some people would say, the left coast like in your early days?
You know, it's really a tale of 2 stories, if I can steal something from a popular book. My time in Southern California, which is Pasadena, wasn't what most people think of when they hear Pasadena. Most people think of the Rose Bowl, BCS championship games and bowl games there. But, you know, just like in most of Southern California and Los Angeles in particular, every 5 blocks, every 5 miles, the neighborhoods completely changed. And the neighborhood that I lived in happened to be one of those neighborhoods everybody liked to forget about. You know, my little section was very close to what's called Jackie Robinson Park. If you have any listeners from Pasadena, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But to make it relatable for most people, my neighborhood in Pasadena was a lot like what you would see in Boys in the Hood, like famous movie, Menace to Society, stuff like that. Those are the things I would see on a regular basis. When I moved to Sacramento, it was a really good blessing for my family now because it wasn't that gang and saturated culture. And so I got out of that situation. I was able to, I guess, spread my wings a little bit and begin to grow into the man I would eventually become, which is who I am now.
Good stuff. What was the environment like growing up mostly without a father in your life?
You know, what's really weird is, you know, a lot of people have daddy issues. And my dad is actually not my biological father, but he took responsibility when my biological father didn't. And I also had my grandfather in my life. So even though they weren't there every day, it's like I had that influence. And so I was raised predominantly by my mother, but she sort of, I don't know if she was strong enough for both roles, and both roles wasn't there. And I know a lot of, men and women that were raised by a single parent can relate to that. But it's like whenever I really needed my dad, he was there. But there's a lot of things that you grow up with. When I started playing basketball, he was in a different city, a different part of the city, Southern California versus Northern California. He didn't really grow up playing sports, so he didn't know how to show me that. So it's a lot of things I ended up doing on my own, but that really taught me how to be a very strong and determined individual because I had to learn by trial and error. A lot of error, a lot of error, but it taught me how not to ever give up.
Excellent. What influence has your mother had on your life, even from a young age? Because obviously she was your major caregiver, major authority figure, especially from a young age.
She is probably the one person who's had the most impact on my life. Every boy, that grows up with their mother, she's the first person that you fall in love with. You can have as many parents as you want around you, but your mother, the one that gives birth to you, is the one that you have the closest bond with. And I know daughters have the same kind of bond with their dads, but she had the most influence on me. And here's another reason why. My mother had me when she was about 20 years old. So essentially, I sort of grew up with her. And in her younger years, she actually was an addict. And when she got clean when I was about 7 years old, I began going to 12-step meetings with her. And listening to the stories at these 12-steps meetings really taught me a lot about what not to do, one thing. Never really tried drugs, always stayed away from it. But I got to see her growth, going from somebody who had lost her confidence and self-esteem to somebody who was sought after as a motivational speaker in that world. And that really just, seeing my mom, my first love, if you want to call it that, go from, I guess, the bottom to a place of respect and admiration, it really set me on a path that I just thank her for every day. She actually passed away back in 2001, and she's still such a positive influence on me to this day. I actually named my company after one of her nicknames, which is Angelbird LP.
Nice. Wow, that attending steps meetings with your mother at that young age, that must have a lifelong impact on you.
Absolutely. I mean, you go through, you see everybody in these meetings. Addiction isn't choosy and picky, and it skips over a group of people. I saw wealthy people there. I saw Hollywood people there. I saw the poorest of the poor. I saw former gang members. I saw former prostitutes. I saw, Fortune 500 people, regular business people, all in this same room, having a lot of the same stories, same addictions, same problems, same trials and triumphs. And it just really exposed me to the brighter world of, the world, and what common problems people actually have.
So what was education like? The public school, secondary, college, how did you handle that?
Well, what's interesting is that I guess it really depends on how your life is at home, or let me say the environment you live in at home. Starting in Pasadena, when I really started going to elementary school, kindergarten and up, I lived in one part of Pasadena, but they had a busing program. So they would bus us to the nice part of Pasadena where, you see the 4-bedroom homes and the homes that people would have on the movies. And I got to go to school over there. So every bus trip was an adventure in what was possible. I would leave what I had to live in and drive through and go to what I saw as what I wanted. I saw, the middle class life, the upper middle class life, the upper class life. I saw soccer moms and all this stuff. I saw mom and dad, married together, coming to PTA meetings, and I said, that's what I want. And that was really my whole experience in Southern California in school, was really having to live in one place, but being exposed to what I wanted when I became an adult.
What were some of the lessons, and I know we'll get to the fatherpreneurship and the work-life balance as we go on, but I think it's very important that people know where you came from. And,
Sure.
and I really appreciate you being open and transparent, because there are some things you've already shared that people wouldn't just share to a public audience. So thank you so much for being open and transparent.
That's no problem. That's actually how I live my life,
Excellent.
because I understand that if you put on a front, you know, people are going to look over you, pass over you. They're going to brush off what you're saying. But if you have an experience of maybe hardship, and a story of triumph, and someone who's going through what you've already been through says, ah, that guy is where I am right, was where I am right now, and he's an example of where I want to go. Let me maybe listen to him a little bit more. And I get so much gratification out of encouraging other people and empowering other people to lift themselves up, or sometimes take my hand or someone else's hand and get out of their current situation and get to the life that they've always dreamed of and envisioned.
Excellent. So what did you major in college?
I went to the Alabama A&M University in Normal/Huntsville, Alabama, and
Right.
my actual major, the technical name was telecommunications. But to the rest of the world, you would know it as communications, mass communications, and I focus on video production.
And how was that experience for you?
It was a great experience. You know, I grew up in California, and I ended up going to college in Huntsville, Alabama. And I went to an HBCU. So
Right.
realistically, it was a reverse culture shock.
Sure.
California is extremely diverse, which I'm sure Toronto is, which I believe you're in now.
Absolutely.
Very diverse. And then I get to Huntsville, where 99.9% of my peers are all African American. Well, let me say of African descent, because they're from
Yep.
all over the world.
Sure.
And you did have sprinkles, like, you know, Latina here, Caucasian there, but just the whole city and the dynamic of the South took me some adjusting. But when I did, you know, that's some of the four of the best years I've had in my life. You know, I met my wife there. I got my college degree there. I played college basketball, which was always a dream. That's actually what got me from California to Huntsville, basketball scholarship, which is a whole nother show in itself of that whole story. But yeah, I ended up there, and I loved every moment of it. Well, a lot of the workouts weren't all that great, but it was a great experience.
What lessons in life did you take from playing sports?
Oh man, oh wow, a lot, a whole lot. Sports. I fell in love with the game of basketball around sixth grade. I didn't play organized basketball until ninth grade. But when I really started becoming, I guess, addicted to basketball in seventh grade, where I played every day I was at school, I would play basketball. And what I learned, you know, you learn social skills. You learn how to handle tough peers. You learn how to persevere, because I wasn't that good in the beginning. You know, in ninth grade when I started playing organized basketball, my first game was horrible. But I actually had a coach that, you know, pulled us all to the side, put his hand on me, and pointed out as my head is hanging down because I had such a horrible game. And he said, "You see this guy here? He's going to get better and better and better." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." I couldn't catch a pass. You know, if you can see, I wear glasses. I didn't have any glasses or contacts at the time, so I couldn't even see the rim. I was 14. I was already probably 6'4", maybe. So I was real awkward. But sports is another piece of why I'm so driven to succeed, because I loved it. And even when I had my worst moments, I couldn't give up, because I just fiended so much for it and had such a passion for the positives that it gave me. It ended up taking me to college. So, you know, and then college was a whole nother level of perseverance, because the skill level, the physical level that you have to meet in that arena, especially Division I NCAA basketball, it really showed me, especially the coach I played for, a lot of my teammates will attest to this, didn't make it easy. But going through it all and having looked back, I say to myself to this day, I said, if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything. And I've made it through even harder things than that.
You know what? And the reason why I asked that conversation piece is I can relate to what you were saying, because I didn't play a lot of sports, but I refereed. I've refereed about,
Uh,
yeah, you know right there, that's a whole different take, refereeing than playing sports. And there are so many things that I've learned from refereeing and playing some sports that I've applied to my everyday life. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and I want especially listeners, especially young black people, male, female, who are playing sports, to get that message, that what you learn from sports is not just to be applied on the playing field itself.
Yeah, and most people don't understand that, sports for a lot of people is literally a lifesaver. Depending on where you grow up, you'll understand what I'm saying. Where outside of sports in a lot of communities, there's not much else to do or to get into that's productive. You leave school, you leave your house, and there may be gang issues, there may be drug issues, there may be alcoholism, there may be, just nothing positive around you. And for me, staying focused on school and sports really helped me stay away from a lot of the foolishness. A lot of people I went to high school with, had some bad endings to their high school career. A lot of people a lot more talented than I was. Never got to live out their dream or pursue sports even further because of the surroundings of what they succumbed to. So I'm just thankful to God that He really gave me enough grace to stay focused. Like many other people, it could have went other ways.
Excellent. Well, you get out of college. What was your next move?
Wow. So because my mom passed away in 2001, and I was so far away during my college career, I moved to Las Vegas, where my family had relocated after my mom had passed. So, well, that's an interesting city. I lived there for 2 years, and what's funny is, as a college kid, I was focused on graduating in 4 years because employers are going to count how fast you graduate and your grade point average. So I moved to Vegas to be with my family and to get into the broadcasting field, and doors shut. Doors shut. And most people don't know that Las Vegas is a very unionized city. Since I had that catch-22 where I don't have enough experience, they want you to have experience, but you can't get experience with them because you don't have enough experience. I ended up going into home electronics sales, where I was introduced to, second shifts and getting off late and eating very late, and that's how I got a lot of my girth on me after college. But I spent 2 years there, not really knowing how to sell, but having that idea that I can't give up because it was a full commission job. I said, if I don't earn, I don't earn. If I don't sell, I don't earn. So that was a really interesting experience until the hunger and the desire to come to Atlanta, one, to reconnect with my wife and get into my field called, and that's when I moved to Atlanta in 2005.
And what were you doing in Atlanta when you landed back in 2005?
So thankfully, Atlanta is a much more saturated area for broadcasting and video production. And so after a few months of really, really looking and getting down to my last dime, I finally get a phone call from a broadcast facility. I get my shot, and here's something that's really interesting. In my interview, it shows how young and unwise I was. These words actually came out of my mouth. I know I'm not going to make a lot of money here, but I just really want to get my shot. And the lady interviewing me like, don't say that. I'm like, well, I know it's true. I've looked at the numbers. In my head, I'm saying this now. But yeah, she gave me my shot. I got broke into the broadcast world, and I started out on the night shift. Oh, how much fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And were you married at that time?
I didn't get married yet. We got married in 2006, so a year later, we ended up getting married. So, my goal of getting married to my wife, that happened. We were engaged for 2 years, and here I am. I'm going at it, and my wife is still in college at the time because she decided after she got a math degree, she wanted to pursue nursing, so she had to keep going. So I'm working. Every time I would get a call for overtime, oh, that's me. I'll take it. Anytime there's can you come in early? That's me. I'll take it. Because the way I've been trained from my male role models, from how school had taught me was, especially from my grandparents' generation, they're 85 and 84, is you go to school, you get a good education, you get a good job, and that's the end of the advice. So that's ingrained in me. Public school is class bell rings, class bell rings, class bell rings. Sort of like an assembly line. You work hard, you get good grades, you get on the honor roll, you might get a scholarship, you get a scholarship, go to college, and the same thing happens over and over again. And so I'm finally in this real workforce, and I'm gung ho. I'm like, I've been wanting to get into the broadcast industry, and I'm here, and I'm going to put everything I have into it. And I started learning some very tough lessons about what's important.
And what was the first turn in regards to the first moment that you learned some of these valuable lessons?
Well, one thing, my wife also has a hard-working father. And there was just one day that I had promised her we would go do something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we had a date. We hadn't had any children at the time. And, she would barely see me because I'd work at night, be asleep when she got home. And I got the call for some overtime. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll be there. Never asking her, never involving her in the decision-making process, because I'm so trained that if I have an opportunity to earn more money, which, trade more time, get more money, get ahead. And she had a moment. She's like, what are you doing? What about us? I'm like, well, don't you understand? I'm working for us. I'm working harder for us. And, and I took that thought process after that lesson really showed me, like, whoa, maybe I can try and not do so much overtime. But, as hard-headed and as grained as the employee mindset was in me, it took a few more very hard lessons learned to really start making changes. And I moved on to another job, which I thought was better. Got to learn a whole lot more about my industry, my field. But, 2 years into that, we're looking at buying houses, and my wife is pregnant, and she just had the baby. And the company owner comes down, and I'm busy at work, and he says, Rodney, you're a great worker, but we just can't afford to pay you anymore. And this was at the height of the beginning of the Depression,
Yep.
The Depression. So business had slowed down. Great facility, great people to work with. I still love those people, but we just can't afford to pay you. And I'm like, well, how could you argue with that? It wasn't about my work ethic. It wasn't about if people liked me or not. It wasn't if I was qualified anymore. It was, we can't afford to pay you. So I got to go home and break the news to my wife and my dad that came down to visit, and my month-old son was there. And I pulled my wife to the side and said, I got to let go today. And the pink slip, I'll head down to the unemployment office tomorrow. And it's like, all of our dreams about home ownership and growing into more space died. And it all died because someone else had the power over my career.
True.
And that was a major wake-up call. I'll call it major wake-up call number one. But yet and still, because I was so trained on being a good employee, I went hard at work retooling my resume and finding another job. And I eventually, after months, found another job.
And but when you went into that next job, how had your thought process begun to change?
It began to change because that was a very painful experience. I had never, ever been fired, let go, laid off ever in my life. So it's an ego check, and especially for the men that are watching that may or may not have ever gone through that. A lot of our ego is tied into how we provide for our family. And here I am, unable to really provide for my family. The dreams of homeownership died, went away, because the banks aren't going to approve you if you don't have an income. And then they want you to have it for some months and check stubs. So I just got back into hustle mode. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. I'm going to go into business. I'm going to do something. I'm going to, show this next company, and they're going to promote me. And I get to my next company, and which happened to be my dream job. I wanted to be a video editor since college. And I was pounding the pavement, and then as soon as I got back in the car, we want you to come in for an interview. I'm like, oh, yeah, my dream job. They really want me. I'm feeling myself now. I'm like, yeah, buddy. So, I started this job. I'm a video editor. And by this time, I think I also had a second job because work harder, get ahead.
Right.
So I work harder. Got my 2 jobs, did my video editing job, and I started working weekends because it was a
Wow.
new whole process, and I was a person who was replacing a whole company. So I'm working harder, I'm working weekends. Then I have my second job. My son's getting older, and because we went through such hardship, we had to move in with family friends to make it. And I was there for about 11 months, and it was winter time. And man, this is a crazy story, and some of you may not believe it, but I was there, so you got to take my word for it. One Monday night, I used to play basketball, and we had a babysitter watching my son, and my wife was out doing something else. So I come home, I see I got a bunch of voicemails. I call my boss, and my boss is on the other line saying, "Hey, Rodney, we need you to come in. It's important." Blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Okay, wait. Let me go see if the babysitter can watch my son." Long story short, babysitter couldn't watch the son. I call him back. I can't come in, but what you're asking me, I can do over the phone and through email. And he was like, no, 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 no. It's vital. It's important. It's an emergency. You got to come in. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I just can't. My wife's not home. I got a new little baby. It's freezing. It's like below 30 in Atlanta, freezing rain cold. And all of a sudden, the owner jumps on, and he was, on the three-way, I guess hiding in the background. And he pleads the same case. I'm like, sir, yes, sir, sir. And he asked this question, which was a life-changing moment, which really helped me cement my value system as far as family goes. These are the words that came out of his mouth. He said to me, he asked me this question: "Don't you have a stroller he can sleep in?"
Wow.
And internally I gasped. I'm like, do you hear what you just asked me?
Oh, jeez.
And a bunch of other bleep words started going through my head, but I don't say them out loud because this is my dream job, and it's valuable to me. We're trying to get back on our feet. And my response to him, and as I'm saying the response, I know what's going to happen to me once I say it. I say, that's not going to happen. And when I said the pin part of happen, in my mind, I knew I was going to get let go. That very next day, the moment I walk in, I'm called to a sidebar, and we've decided not to work with you anymore. And the difference between last time getting laid off and this time getting laid off was that I had so much conviction this time. And I said in the conference, I said, anytime I'm asked to choose between my family and my job, I'll choose my family. And a light bulb went off in my head. I didn't get to where I am now yet, but I was determined to get to another place after that moment where I was literally asked to choose between my career and my family. And I'm here to say this to any man listening and any woman who can relate. You should never be put in a place where you have to choose between work and family. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for sharing that story. Game changing, very much so. Now, where did the term fatherpreneurship start in all the journey now?
Wow. I was really working hard at determining who my niche is. And if you're in business for yourself, you really need to learn what your niche is. There's a saying, there's a riches in the niches. And I was using my business and marketing to different groups of people and not really getting any traction, not any responses, no sales or leads or conversions. And I really thought to myself, listening to a lot of my mentors, people that have made a whole lot of money, millions of dollars in a year, I should say. And they would say, you have to speak to one audience. If you market to everyone, you market to no one. And I looked at who they would market to, and they had a story to tell those people that they could relate to. One mentor would market to this people, and they had such a heart-wrenching, maybe not heart-wrenching, but a made-for-TV story about that group of people, that those group of people would see that person and say, oh, I can connect with them. And I really had to really think hard to myself, who do I want to help? Who can benefit from my message and my experience? And I really started thinking about all the times I was laid off, let go, downsized, whatever you want to call it. And I really started talking to other men and realizing how many other people have been through situations like I have, or situations that took them away from their children. Excuse me. And I said, that's it. fathers. And I guess when you really start getting into what you're really meant to do, God sort of downloads things into your head, and the term fatherpreneurship sort of just, light bulb went off. I'm like, aha, aha, that's it. And
Good
I started
stuff.
running with it. I said, that's my market.
So describe to someone who's, first of all, never heard of fatherpreneurship and probably can't spell it correctly, as we said before we came on live. What is fatherpreneurship all about?
Fatherpreneurship is pretty simple yet essential, in my opinion. It's about reconnecting fathers to their children, because I know every father isn't married, and even every father hasn't had children yet. I'll even make it, that much further. It's about reconnecting them to their children by changing their mindset about how to understand how to work, trade less time for more money. Because if you really, I know some men are deadbeats, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking about those men that care, that love their children, that it pains them to be away from their children because of work, because of a bad relationship with the child's mother, because of whatever situation that they have. And as we're trained as men to work so hard, we can get lost in working hard and miss out on our child's life and hoping that they understand one day when they grow up, Daddy did it for you. But as their children look back on their memories, all they remember is you not being there. And I have a passion because I used to be that guy. I was always gone. One job, two jobs, night shift. As much as I loved them, I was so ingrained in earning a living, trading my life away, giving my life to places that did not give me life back, that I looked one day and said, man, my son's getting big. He's years old now. All these jobs I keep working don't pay me enough. They don't value me enough. And I just woke up one day, without really having a plan in business, but just having that driving passion like I did with basketball when I was addicted to basketball, to say there's got to be a better way. And that's when I started, really looking at how I can make this happen.
It's a very unique concept, and I'm sure that more and more as we go along on the journey in society, more and more fathers are having this, for lack of a better term, in my mind, battle between balancing being a great provider and then being what's truly in their hearts.
Yeah.
You had some things happen to you to have a heart life change and a mind change. When you share the fatherpreneurship with other fathers, what are they reacting? What are they telling you?
They're like, man, I'm with you. It's like certain things are on the inside of us, in our spirit, and when we meet that thing that explains what we feel, we instantly gravitate towards it. So saying to a man, I want to help you spend more time with your children versus working all the time. They're like, man, I want that so bad. And what I'm learning is the more that I talk about that aspect, even women that have to raise their children on their own and happen to have those deadbeat men in their lives, they're connecting to the same message because they have to play the role of mother and father together. So the reaction I'm getting once I really started, branding myself with fatherpreneurship, it's like, yeah, I'm with that. Oh, I need that. What is that about? Because men, maybe there's a cultural revolution going on, especially with a lot of the stay-at-home dads. But I guess, after generations of men working themselves to death, literally, not being a part of their children's life, I think men in all cultures are starting to say, I need to be in my child's life more than ever before. And that's the essence of the message.
So what, and you for yourself and for other men out there, what are some of the toughest challenges to get into the fatherpreneurship mindset?
Well, hopefully you're not as hard-headed as I am, and it doesn't take 3.5 layoffs over a period of 5 years. It doesn't have to take death in your family to say, and not having the money to fly across the country to be at their funeral, to say to yourself, I need to wake up. It just happened to take that much hardship for me to say, I need to spend more time with my family and my loved ones and to be there for the people who really need me. I'll share one story that really brought this home for me when I was working at that second job. The company I worked for was going through a major downsizing. It was a government-funded entity. And so they started forcing people who had been there 20 years into retirement. And they would give them a luncheon to send them away. And this one gentleman had been forced into retirement. He had been moping around, the weeks leading up to his retirement. And then he has to be at this luncheon with his family there and his friends there, spitting out encouraging words the best they could. And I could see in his face the grudging feeling. And as he had to get up and give his farewell speech and his thanks to people, you can see that it was not filled with joy. You can see that he had a grudge in his heart, that he was still, in essence, a young man. And this place that he gave 20 years of his life to provide for his family was saying, we no longer need you. We can no longer afford you, no matter how many children you have, no matter how much you put in. And he was just gone. And I said, that's one of the saddest things I've ever seen. I absolutely do not want to ever be in that place 20 years from now when I'm 40, 50, 60 years old, just to be thrown away for all my hard work. And as men, we understand that feeling, that we work hard, we feel like we should be rewarded and appreciated. But what's true is that when you pass away and leave this earth, the people that will be there at your funeral and saying kind words about you would be the ones, the family that you've made and were born into. And those are the people that need your time invested into them more than any job or career that you could ever work. You'll make the most impact and have the most influence on lives with them than you will with your employer or career.
Well, I'll tell you, that's very true. But I think that obviously the biggest challenge is changing the mindset that's been going on for years and years and years in many men. To change that mindset, what do you feel needs to happen with men to change this mindset? Obviously, you had some personal things that happened to you, but what about the men that haven't encountered those personal challenges and hope that they don't have to go through what you went through?
I really believe we have to get rid of our Superman complex. I was forced into change that mindset. But if you just look at numbers, just how much unemployment has gone through this country, just in the U.S. and I believe in Canada at the same time, how much unemployment has gone, and I'm guaranteeing that you know someone, if it hasn't been you, that has been laid off, let go, or downsized. And this whole feeling of, oh, it won't happen to me, is absolutely false. The idea that your employer, their 401k that they're offering you, gives you all of the comfort that you need and reassurance that you need is false. So what needs to really happen is you need to take an inventory of your life and say, if my job disappeared right now, what would you do? How would you cope and how would you move forward? In the past, for my training, I will go find another job, and another job, and another job. But what if that market is closed? Like factory workers, that industry has dramatically reduced. You have to say to yourself, what's the next industry that may dramatically reduce? And if you think about the ones that are growing, they're growing, and as they grow, the earning potential goes down because the value is lowered on your skill set. So you have to say, you really have to take into consideration value for your time. How valuable is your time? How much money do you really want to make, really? And think, will an employer ever pay you that? That's where I think men can start with the changing of the mindset.
And what support, if they are in a relationship or married, what would you give words of wisdom for their partners as a man is going through that change and getting into the fatherpreneurship mindset?
Well, what's hard is, not only men are trained this way, but now our women are trained this way. And as much as I can possibly encourage a spouse or to communicate to the spouse is that the way that you've supported me in this traditional career endeavor, I need you to support me in this, I guess, non-traditional career endeavor because of the reasoning behind it. Now, most people don't understand that. We think about entrepreneurship just in general as always opening up brick and mortar businesses. But if you look at business nowadays, as we're online ourselves, just about every business that's wise has taken their business or their marketing online. So there is a way that you can do your own business, your own passion, whatever it may be, part-time. Jim Rohn has a saying. He says you can earn a living working full-time, but you can earn a fortune working part-time. And it absolutely is possible if you find the right niche, the right business for you.
How has the movement grown since you started?
Wow. I really started kicking into gear just with the branding of fatherpreneurship. You'd be surprised in this past 2 or 3 months. And since I've geared it towards that, it's grown exponentially. Before I would get trinkles here and there, people connecting to it a little bit here and there. When I coined that phrase was downloaded into my mind, and I started putting that out there, people were like, what is that? Because one day, when the term came to my head, I said, let me Google this. I'm sure some other really smart entrepreneur has thought of this term. And realistically, it really wasn't. Someone had used it fleetingly. They hadn't used it as their own thing. And I'm like, yeah, that's my thing. And as I've used it more and more, as I market to dads that have been through what I've been through or desire what I desire, it's like boom, 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 boom. And that's the power of really tapping into your market or your niche. So I guess the real answer to your question is the response has been amazing.
How has fatherhood changed, in your opinion, from the time you were younger and not a father to the time now that you are a father?
Wow, I think that goes back to what I was saying about the growing trend of stay-at-home dads, where like the mom may be the corporate worker and the dad's at home taking care. I really do believe there's a culture shift that perhaps may have happened or begin happening around late 90s, early 2000s, maybe, where men really said, the way that my dad, the way that my granddad did things, the way that my great-grandfather, if you had the luxury of living around them, the way that they worked and lived may maybe have worked for the time, but for the needs that I foresee in the future of my family, that model doesn't really work out. And I think what we're seeing, especially for all the decades, and especially in certain cultures that have been missing out on their fathers on a bigger scale for so long, men that have grown up without fathers and grandfathers said, man, I'm going to be there for my kids. I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to be there for my children. And I think that's why maybe my message is really catching on, is because there's a culture shift, thankfully, in the way that men think, not saying that we shouldn't work anymore, but we just really have to reassess what we do, why we do it, and how we go about it. And I know my message is really going to start reaching a lot more of the masses because of it's already inside of many men.
You have a 5-year-old son, and you also have another child on the way. When they become ready to hear this message, what are you going to tell them about fatherhood?
Well, he's already seen me in action, and actually he's trying to invade my conversation now. That's the life of a 5-year-old. Want to see what Papa's doing.
Absolutely.
What I really want them to see is how much they matter to me. When I leave this earth, I don't want to have them reflecting on my life and ever say, I mean this with all the sincerity that's within my body, ever saying that my job came before them. That's point blank, period. And when they look back, I want them to think of all the memories and the vacations that we had, all the times we had at home, all the lessons I was able to teach them right when they had an experience with something or another, and didn't have to wait for me to get home, didn't have to wait for me to take vacation time, didn't have to wait for me to retire by the time they're an adult. So what I want them to know and see and say about me was that he loved me so much that he changed the course of our lives by making one decision, and that was to become a fatherpreneur.
Wonderful. That is good stuff. Do you think America is ready for fatherpreneurship?
Absolutely.
Why?
Absolutely. Without a doubt. And that has to be related to, a lot of the leftovers from the World War II era, that work mentality, that employment mentality, is still prevalent. I mean, we gotta be honest. There's still men out there who are putting in 80 hours a week. I was one of them. There's still men out there working 100 hours a week. There's still men out there working 2 jobs. There's still men out there that don't get to see their children at all because they have this financial goal in mind, and they're working for so much less than what they're actually worth that they never ever get to meet their goals. They rarely ever get to see their children. They get backed up on child support. They can't afford to take their children. They can't afford, if their children live out of state, they can't afford the trips to go see them. They can't afford. It's like this big mental block in the culture, maybe just Western culture, maybe, that has put career, without being blasphemous, as God in a way. Going back to my story where my boss asked me to bring my child in, and it's like in his mind, that company was it. That was the top ladder. Nothing could be more important. And as a person of faith, my stature, my model is God first, family second, and then everything else. And we tend to forget it. Maybe if you don't believe in God, family first, and everything else, stick with that. But that, if you really, really put your family above your career, you're going to start really realizing that it doesn't match traditionally. Now, there are certain jobs and careers that are perfect for family life. And honestly, and if you're making enough money and you're great, I'm not talking to you. But I am speaking to the person that has worked 2 jobs, that does work 80 to 100 hours a week, that doesn't get to see their children enough, that has that burning desire to be there, period, for their children. That's who I'm speaking to. And I know there is a massive number of men like me out there that keep saying to themselves, there has to be a better way, over and over, and there has to be. And I'm here to tell you there is, because I'm on that path. I'm doing it.
What are women telling you about the fatherpreneurship movement?
You know what's funny? It's like they're sort of taking hey honey, come look at this. Because they're on the front line taking the brunt of the workaholic. They're the ones that get the phone call, honey, I'm not home for dinner. I can't help the kids with homework. I can't help with laundry. I can't help with cleaning the house. We can't take that trip. I can't go on that date with you. Sorry, your anniversary is every year, but I can't do anything this year. Like, they're the ones that are really tired of this mindset, of this employee mindset. Even if they have jobs, it's like women have a supernatural way of doing whatever it takes. And I saw that example with my mother. The prime example of hustle. But they're the ones that really take the brunt, because sadly, for generations, they've been the ones primarily raising our children, raising our sons and daughters, and really missing us. It's the best way to put it. They miss us. And they've sort of said, I see that they're sort of tired of the same thing. And so what I see is they'll get my message, maybe it's a blog post or a video, and they'll share it with their husbands. They'll like it, and they said, oh, I know someone who needs to hear that. Because they get it too. They understand that men need to wake up. And I'll tell you what, being married for, it'll be 8 years in July, listen to your women. Listen to your mothers, sisters, girlfriends, wives. Listen, because they're in tune with different things that we're in tune with, because we're so focused on providing financially, we're not there emotionally or spiritually or even physically because of that choice. So women have surprisingly been very supportive.
Excellent. If you weren't doing fatherpreneurship, what would you be doing?
Oh man, I'd be looking for fatherpreneurship. I have a little taste of entrepreneurship thanks to actually one of my best friend, my co-author of the series I wrote, What Your Name Is, the What Your Name Is book series. And we actually, our first book landed us on CNN. And I'm like, wait a minute. You can really take an idea and get it before the masses and really get a response and make some money off of it at the same time? And so in 2011, when that happened, I'm like, maybe there's something to this. But I didn't have my marketing education yet. I had the desire, I had the ideas, but I didn't understand funnels, marketing funnels, and leads, and converting leads into sales, even with a book. But it's like, oh, only if I knew now what I knew then type of thing. So that really, I think, really catapulted me into just flat out entrepreneurship. But when I started making messages that connected to fathers, that's when fatherpreneurship happened. And if I wasn't doing it, I'd be probably doing a lot more trial and error, trying to figure out how to make money entrepreneurially some way, somehow.
So what is the next step for fatherpreneurship movement?
The fatherpreneurship movement is just getting as many people connected to it, giving them and offering them tools and education and a personal development that I've had access to. And thankfully, I've connected with a group of people, a wonderful group of people. We call ourselves the Dream Team, that are so supportive and have some amazing tools that no matter if you have your own business or you're looking to start your own business, you will have the tools. They'll teach you. They taught me the tools on how to market successfully. And by successfully, I mean making money. Let's be honest, making money, because what's going to take you away from that corporate job working 80 hours if you can't replace that income with something else? Nothing is, honestly. If you can't surpass that income, what's going to take you away from that corporate job? Nothing, because flat out, we're providers, and we have to provide. It's ingrained in us. So there is a better way. And so what's next for entrepreneurship is, men, if you're listening, connect with the message, fatherpreneurship.com, and how to spell it is really the big question we should ask. If you look up entrepreneurship, just put father in front of it instead of entre, which I guess is French. And Google it, YouTube it, you'll find me all over everywhere with that term.
Excellent. Well, before we let you leave, Rodney, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your journey and also a lot about the fatherpreneurship movement. Would you like to give a message to the fathers out there from your heart?
Absolutely. From the bottom of my heart, sincerely to every dad, father, papa, baba, whatever culture you're from, whatever language you speak, you understand what I mean by desiring to spend more time with your children. You have a heart that God gave you to be that father for your seeds that are growing up. And today I want to encourage every father that has had a dream in the past, every father that sees their children growing up, and you're tired of presenting a dream-killing lifestyle before your children. Be encouraged and know on the inside of you that yes, there is a better way. Yes, your children are worth you re-educating yourself, personally developing yourself, and learning a new tool set that will allow you to work smarter and not harder. You absolutely can trade less of your time and make more money at the same time, so you can be there. I encourage every father that has the spirit of love in them, that desires to spend more time, to connect with the fatherpreneurship message. Everywhere on social media, I'm there, because more than just wanting you to join my business, which I do, I'm not going to lie, more than that, I want to see a culture change, a continuing culture change, where fathers are present. It seems so amazing that has to be presented in a way that seems compelling, but I want to help a cultural revolution take place that creates more present and engaged fathers that are there. That's my message to you. Be encouraged. know that I love you. I may never even see you, but I love you with God's agape love, which is unconditional love, and I hope that you'll connect with my message.
Wonderful. That is good stuff. You've given all the. Can you also just give the contact information, website, any other online media that people can get a hold of you before we let you go?
Yeah, you can. Of course, there's the main one. That's www.fatherpreneurship, fatherpreneurship.com. Find me on Twitter at silly and sincere, and on Gmail, Mr. Silly and Sincere at gmail.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm almost everywhere. I'm trying to get everywhere. Get my face everywhere. But if you Google or YouTube fatherpreneurship, you will find me, because I've learned that's my niche, and it's time to get other fathers connected to the message and changing not only their lives and not only the children's lives, but their communities and in turn the world.
Excellent. Just one last thing before we let you go. How did you get the Twitter handle Silly and Sincere?
Man, that's actually a long/short story, but one day I just finally did a survey of all the people who really, really knew me and said, if you had 2 words to describe me, what would it be? And those 2 words constantly popped up, silly and sincere. I said, that's me. That's who I'll be.
Good stuff. Well, good. We want to keep in touch with you, and please keep in touch with us as the Fatherpreneur movement goes. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us tonight. It is the Dr. Vibe Show. We are blessed and highly favored, a magnet for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. If you want to check me out, just go to my website, thedrvibeshow.com. All my contact information is there. You can also check me out on a regular basis at the Good Men Project. I'm a regular contributor there. My show is the only regular online show that is on their site. Also, I'm the monthly Google Plus Premium Members Hangout host, also co-producer, and you catch me out wherever you can. As always, I'd like to say God bless, peace be well, and keep the faith, and thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.